Okay, so I want to start this school security related video out the same way that I do all of them with an impact statement because it's critical that you understand this. Here's the bottom line. If you are a school, the fact that your school hasn't yet been victimized by an incident of violence has nothing to do with what you've done to prevent it. Rather, it's only because you haven't yet been chosen. Here's the bottom line. If you were chosen, just like all the rest of the schools and businesses for that matter, churches throughout the country who have been chosen, victim counts are going to be high. It's that simple, unless we change things. And if we change things, which is going to require new outside the box thinking, um, that's just a fact. Now, if you're a teacher, student, school administrator, board member, and or parent, that should hit you really, really hard. Because again, uh, if something happens, the results are going to be bad. And here's the deal: you have a chance to actually correct it now. Once it happens, the consequences are the consequences. There's nothing you can do at that point. So we get the all the regret that you could have done more, you did should have done more, but you didn't, and on and on and on. But I want to talk about why this is the case. Why is it that if your school is chosen, um, that victim counts are going to be high unless we change things? Well, there's a whole bunch of different reasons. First and foremost, school security has failed. 100% failed. So this means that all the stuff that you've been led to believe will keep you secure, like Alice training, your local police department, a school resource officer, alarms, cameras, access control, gadgets, 911 alert applications, gunshot detection systems, all the things you've been led to believe will keep you secure will not keep you secure. Now, how do I know all this? Well, because 23 years ago, we had a what I call a triggering incident, Columbine. That was the incident where there had been school shootings prior to that, but that was really the incident that was really the first of its kind during what I'll call the internet age, where it brought every single detail right into our homes, into our backyards. It brought the situation close to us, and it triggered this nationwide effort to make sure that Columbine never ever happened again. We brought together supposed experts like law enforcement, military, security experts, doctors, educators, attorneys, and I could go on and on and on. It brought everybody to this imaginary table to find solutions, figure out how we can make sure Columbine had never happen again. And 23 years later, we had this incident at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. And here's the bottom line: the results of Robb Elementary School, the victim counts were actually higher than the victim count at Columbine, which was the triggering incident of making sure this nationwide effort to make sure that Columbine never happened again. And incidentally, in between, we had a whole ton of incidents in which victim counts exceeded the triggering incident of Columbine. Sandy Hook, Parkland, Virginia Tech, Uvalde, and I could go on and on and on. And then we had a whole bunch of incidents that didn't equate to the same victim counts, but still victim counts were really high. So what does this mean? It means that school security has failed completely yet. Every time there's an incident of mass violence, everybody throws up their hands, demands answers to make sure it doesn't happen again. And who do we turn to for a resolve? The same exact people we've been turning to for the past 23 years that have not resolved it, thinking that maybe this time they'll actually get it. Well, here's the bottom line. Until we start thinking differently and until we start looking to different people, experts who actually look at this in a completely different way, until we start thinking outside the box, you can expect that if your school is chosen and that victim counts will be high, and that we will continue to see these over and over again, not only in schools, but in businesses as well. But I want to talk to you about why. why this is the case, why we have failed for 23 years, and give you an idea of what needs to change in order to make sure that for once we resolve this. First of all, um, there's a whole bunch of reasons why victim counts are so high, but it starts with what I just talked about. We rely on the wrong people for advice. We just assume that if somebody's in law enforcement or the military or security, that they know about incidents of active shooter and other acts of violence. So we send them to a 1 or 2 day training course, and this is the most popular going to be Alice, Alert, and there's a whole bunch of other ones now, Devoid, Defend, Deny, and all kinds of other ridiculous training courses that basically all say and do the same thing. But we send these people to a 1 or 2 day training course. They are then deemed experts in active shooter instruction. Again, keep in mind, all these programs are very one dimensional. They focus on active shooter, but there are no prerequisites required to take this training course. So, in 2 days, we are basically saying whether you're in law enforcement, military, whatever your background might be, that you are an expert. Now, go out and teach the world how to make sure that we can resolve these problems. Well, you cannot become an expert in anything in 2 days. It's absolutely impossible. But when we make somebody believe that they're an expert, we crown them with this title. They will assume themselves to be experts, and this is where we start to find the problem. This is why there is no consistency when it comes to what schools do to remain safe and keep their people secure and what they do to teach them. Um, Everybody's different. Why? Because we're talking to a whole bunch of people, local law enforcement who go to Alice training, which incidentally, Alice training is just not the answer at all. And I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But we can pull 5 of these experts apart or separate them at the end of the training, ask them all the same question, and you're going to get 5 different answers. And they're not even going to be they will give you answers, which is basically impossible to do. But it's because um, they're not experts. So we rely on the wrong experts, and we have relied on the wrong experts for 23 years, and then we give them the wrong training, then they take wrong into the schools, and then we replicate wrong over and over and over again. And this is exactly what we've been doing for 23 years, expecting different results. And then think about how decisions are made. We take these so-called experts that we deem to be experts and that we assume to be experts, local law enforcement, federal law enforcement, Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, and other organizations, people who go to Alice training, and on and on and on. We hire security professionals to come in and do assessments of our buildings and so on and so forth. And then when they come to us with recommendations, think about who makes the decisions on which of those recommendations are going to be accepted and implemented into the school. Typically, it's a board of people and or administrators that know nothing about security that then decide which of those things they deem to be most important and which ones they're going to accept or not accept. It makes no sense whatsoever. Next, we've come to rely on not only on the wrong people but the wrong things. Okay, so we just assume that everyone and everything is going to keep us secure, but they don't. And then we don't, because of that, we don't focus on where the attention should be. So we've been led to believe that law enforcement will keep us secure, security people will keep us secure, and then on top of that, technology, alarms, cameras, access control, gunshot detection systems, gun detection systems, 911 alert apps, door barricading devices, door jamming gadgets. Absolutely absurd. Think about this. Do any of those things keep us secure? The answer is really simply no. How do I know that? Because almost every school that's been victimized have done everything that they've been required to do by federal statutes and local. They've done everything that they've been told to do by their local police department and their school resource officer, and yet they're still chosen, they're still victims, and victim counts are high. So that's number two. Second, and then, like I said, just to emphasize, because of these things, we continue to replicate wrong, and nothing changes. Number two, again, we don't focus on the right time frame. And this is really going to the core of what this video is going to be about. This time frame that I'm talking about is the life or death gap. What is the life or death gap? It's that time that starts the second you know and understand there's danger to you or someone you love and care for, and it extends until the time you know 100% for certain that that danger no longer exists. It's gone. It can be seconds, several seconds, minutes, many minutes, and in some cases, even hours. But here's the deal: if you're in it, regardless of how long or short it is, even if it's a matter of seconds, it's a lifetime. Why? Because a lot of damage can occur in just a matter of seconds. This life or death gap is the time when you're on your own. There is no one there to help you except for you. And this life or death gap will exist every single time there's an incident with zero exceptions. I tell people this all the time. I could be sitting in a school and I could say, you could have five law enforcement officers sitting right outside your front door in the parking lot. And if someone started shooting right now, think about not only the physical process and procedures that would have to take place to resolve it, but the mental aspects of it as well. First of all, someone would have to realize that there is a problem, a danger, a threat. Then they would have to communicate that threat then to the officers, or maybe the officers will hear it themselves. But then they have to go through this process of figuring out what's going on, what is the problem, how are we going to resolve this problem, and then put this plan into action, and start to move towards a threat. Uh, and then the resolve has to be where is the problem, find the problem, and then resolve it. Listen, by the time that happens, no matter what the circumstances are, the threat is typically over. Not because somebody stopped them, but because they chose to end it. And there could be a whole bunch of different reasons for that. So, again, we don't focus on giving people what it takes to be secure. It's another thing I always tell people, we focus way too much time and effort on trying to keep people secure when we should actually be teaching them how to be secure and resolve the problem for themselves. Now, think about the uh, uh, during this life or death gap, think about the aspects of what is needed, the tools and resources to make sure that we can stop the problem. Number one, communication or lack thereof. Every school I go to across the country, they do a general lockdown. It doesn't matter where the threat is in relation to other people. And then a lot of times the people who are locking down have no idea why they're locking down because there's no way to communicate that. And schools tell me all the time, well, we have a PA system. Great, awesome. But that requires somebody to be on a phone. And if the phone's not in a place where they are secure or they can't get to it, then it does nothing. But then it's what happens after we understand that there's a problem. Number one, with a PA system, you might have a receptionist at a school, for example, see somebody walk in with a gun and inform people that there's somebody in the school with a gun. So the school goes into lockdown. But what happens after that? See, you can tell people to lock down. You can tell them that there's a problem. But if you don't know what the problem is exactly, if you don't know where the problem is, and if you don't know where they are moving, the problem is moving from and to, how can you possibly make a determination as to the best course of action to keep yourself and your kids and or people secure? You can't. It's impossible. But I haven't been into a school yet where that communication aspect of this has been resolved, and it needs to be resolved. And here's the deal: it's easy to resolve. Think about that. It's not 911 alert apps. It's not all these crazy bad panic buttons where push it three times for a staff alert and eight times for an all campus lockdown. It's not based on that stuff. It's based on real time information. What is happening, where the problem is, where it is moving from and to, and making decisions based on where you are in location to that threat and what the threat is doing. There's only one good way to do that, and that is think about it like this. What does law enforcement and the military use in the most chaotic and dangerous of situations to communicate, to plan, to bring people together, to formulate a response to a problem? Two-way radios. It's not relying on cell phone. It's not relying on GPS. It's not relying on Bluetooth, all these technologies that fail. It's relying on a technology that is proven, that goes direct from radio to radio and far less prone to failure than anything else. And it allows people to know exactly what's happening in real time as it's happening. And again, where the threat is moving from and to. Number two, um, in an active shooter incident, as an example, a lot of people get shot and hurt and injured. Number two, the next reason why we have such a high victim count is not just because these people have been shot, but because we can't get them the medical treatment that they need in time to save lives, which is in the classroom before the scene is secure and we can get emergency medical services to them. So, number two, we need resources in the classrooms, not only resources and tools, but skills and expertise to be able to utilize them if and when something were to happen. We need to be able to save lives before the life saving professionals get to us. That's not difficult to do, very simple. Another thing. And then number two, um, we have led people to believe that if you're in a place where somebody has a firearm, you are a victim and you will always be a victim. And the resolve of security products and services today are all centered and based on you're a victim, you'll always be a victim, but how can our product or service shorten the amount of time in which you will be exposed to being a victim and we can get heroes there to stop and resolve the problem? Well, here's the bottom line. That's not going to happen. That's very rarely, if ever, going to happen. So here's the big deal. Bottom line, we've led people to believe that one person with a gun can control 10, 25, 50, 100, 300, and in some schools or businesses, 1,000 people. Numbers will always, always overpower guns. But we have to understand that we have the advantage in our numbers. But not only that, how then can we utilize our numbers to make sure that we safely and securely stop the problem? That's the next aspect of this. Our Vanquish threat response system is inexpensive. It's time free, basically, and very, very simple to implement into a system, and it gets results. It will get results. It is based on all the right things. It's outside the box thinking, and it is changing the way uh, uh, schools and businesses and churches and even homes, for that matter, are securing themselves. So stay with me. I am going to continue to review products and services that schools tend to think are great things. But are little more than they look good. They sound good on paper, but will not work when reality strikes. I'm going to bring reality to you, what it takes to truly secure schools, and then I'm going to give you resources to be able to look at anything you might be considering and get expert advice on whether it's a good choice, a bad choice, the pros and cons of these things, and whether or not you should buy it or implement it into your security system. Because here's the deal. Most of the schools and buildings we go into, they spent a ton of time, a ton of money, and they are no more secure than before they spent a dime or a minute of the time trying to make themselves more secure. So if you like what you just heard, I would greatly appreciate it if you would subscribe, like, share, and to participate, comment. I want feedback. I Everything that I give you is my opinion based on my training, my experiences, and you notice I didn't say expert because here's the bottom line. I'm not an expert, nor is anyone else. If anyone tells you they're an expert, you're talking to the wrong person. If any company tells you they're experts, you're talking to the wrong company. So stay with us. Keep your kids, those you're responsible for, secure. Have a good one.